Hey, Terry Caliendo, Dedicated Managers, back for another video. I just wanted to do this quick video on Cloudway's cloud hosting managed servers. I've been putting clients on their servers for about 6 months now. I really like their system. Recently, though, I had a client got a ton of hits to their website. They went on radio and got about 1,000 hits in a matter of about 10-15 minutes. And it destroyed the server. So I had to look into what was going on with the caching system and the caching mechanisms. And I ended up calling Cloudways or talking to them on a text message chat session and spent about an hour and a half with them and finally figured out how their caching system fully works. So in this video, I just wanted to do a quick brain dump. Ultimately, I'm going to go back and redo this as a whole series on Cloudways. But this video is just a quick brain dump just to get out everything I've learned. Please, if you have any questions, I'm sure I'm not going to be perfectly clear on everything. So just throw a question in the comment. If you don't understand something, that'll help me later when I do the more professional videos. Help me make them more clear and better, I guess. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and also there's a link in the description. My son is crying in the corner over there. There's a link in the description. Everybody that uses Cloudways gets a special link that if they share with their friends, they get the friends get a discount. I think it's a $15 discount right now. So one more time with the baby. Where is he? There he is. So please, yeah, subscribe. Click that link if you're going to use Cloudways, and we'll see you in the video. Thanks a lot. So here we are over at the Cloudways managed cloud hosting platform. This is what I've been driving all my clients to, and been saving a lot of hassles. Been very stable for me, and again, I love the caching, and that's what we're continue to talk about in this video. Quickly, I'll show you what happened here. This was a client that got hit with a 1,964 views, page loads in a very short period of time. They went on radio and mentioned their website on a big radio station and got a ton of hits. And that's just not 964 hits to the server. That's 964 people visiting the server. And then each hit is going to be multiplied by however many images, CSS files, all kinds of stuff that needs to be downloaded. So basically, it probably got about 10,000 hits to the server in a very short period of time. And so we can see, if I click over here on the overview for that day and click hourly, we can see that the page load time went to 36 seconds during that short period of time where the server got nailed. And that's just unacceptable. I mean, people aren't going to wait 36 seconds for a page to load. They're going to leave. So, and this is the people that actually got pages to load. I'm sure there's people that just gave up that were, getting a server down error to their browser. A connection couldn't be established or something like that. So that's unacceptable. So we need to talk about, I needed to dig further into the application here and really understand better the caching mechanism. So this is the interface when you get a Cloudways server instance. This is your server interface where you can see all your servers. You can see I have 4 servers here. This cw1.dedicatedmanagers.com is the one we're going to work on today because it's my server and it's my business website. So I'm going to delve into that server and look at that application. So we're at the application, the WordPress. Dedicated Managers is run on WordPress on this server. This is a Cloudways server. Again, we're in Cloudways. So the next thing I should probably show is this diagram I came up with after my long conversation with the client support. I'll flash that up here real quick. This is the whole conversation that I had to try and understand what was happening, and this is the diagram that I was able to build from it. So basically, when a user request comes in to your Cloudways server here, that's this thing. This thing right here, this server, this is the application level. This is the server where it's coming into. That's that box right there. And they front load the service. The thing that's listening to port 80, port 443 HTTPS is an NGINX server, which is configured as a reverse proxy. So It is supposedly faster than Apache at serving up static files, according to Cloudways and a few other sites out there. So that's why they put that in there first. And so what NGINX does is it looks to see, hey, is the file trying to be retrieved an image, a CSS, a JS file, or a static HTML file, not a PHP rendered into HTML file, just a static HTML file. So if it is that, it's going to just serve that up right away and take the load off the server as much as it can. If it does not find that file, that static file, it's going to pass the process over to Varnish, or give Varnish a chance, which is a caching mechanism at the server level that you'll find on your Cloudways server. If I go back to servers here and I delve into this server here, CW1, and I look at my services, you will see that there is a Varnish application running at the server level. And just here's your PHP, here's NGINX. Varnish is that caching thing. So it's going to hit that Varnish cache, and that Varnish cache is going to say, hey, do I have a cached version of what's trying to be loaded? And basically what's trying to be loaded is going to end up being this WordPress created file that ultimately ends up being an HTML file created from PHP programming. But it's going to say, hey, do I have that file? And if I do, I'm going to send it back without forcing a whole PHP process and WordPress to render and all this other stuff. This is a heavy load on the server here. So if we can escape from passing that load onto the server, we can send that stuff back. So Varnish is pretty much only going to serve up dynamic content because NGINX is going to get the static stuff first. So like I said before, we had 900 visitors coming here, but that's 900 visitors hitting your web page, which is going to load a whole bunch of things. So let's take a look at that real quick right here. I'll pull up the network tab and I'll just reload this page here, and you can see dedicated managers got hit for the static page, but then also subsequently dedicated managers, you can see next to my mouse cursor there, got hit for this min.css file that ends there. It got hit for a whole bunch of things here. The Oxygen CSS file. Some of this stuff is because I'm logged in, but everything, including images. Well, not those images, but the logo image, all that stuff is hitting the dedicated manager server. So each one of those is an independent request to your server that's going to load things down. So again, that's why NGINX is going to serve up those images right away. But ultimately, we want to take even those images, CSS and static stuff, we want to get that off our server and get that over to a CDN so that it takes the load off of our server. And Cloudways allows you to do that with one click. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's start back here again. The HTTP request comes in. NGINX sees if it can proxy it with a static file. Then it passes it to Varnish. If Varnish has a cached version of the page, which is going to be this request right here, which is loading the initial page and getting the response of the whole. This is the HTML that the response that's rendered by PHP. And WordPress. Where was I here? Back to my diagram. So if Varnish has a cached version of that HTML rendered stuff, it's going to send that out back to the user as fast as possible. And then if it doesn't have a cached version, or if its cached version has expired, it's going to send it to Apache, which is then going to take a real tax on the server, load up PHP-FPM, and ultimately call WordPress, which is going to render its code, and then it's going to call, in WordPress's process, it's going to call the Breeze plugin that Cloudways automatically installs, or you can install, which is going to make WordPress a little bit faster. And so I'm going to show how we can see when each of these processes gets hit and what the timings take and how long it takes for each thing to happen. So if we take a look back here at the dedicated managers site and we close this up, when it loaded the dedicated managers page, it took 582 milliseconds, a half a second to render this page. So if I click refresh and look again, this time it took 300 milliseconds. I do have the Cloudways, either the Breeze plugin going here. I don't know if it hit the Varnish cache. So let's take a look. I can delve into this by clicking on it. And if I look at the headers, I'll see in the response headers that came from the server what actually happened. And this X cache here, this is the Varnish cache. So if it is a hit, then Varnish served up the file. If it's a miss, then it got through to Apache. And something happened there on Apache. Apache ended up running the file. You can see the server is NGINX, so that's the front where we talked about NGINX. We came in, we skipped Varnish because that was a miss, so we ended up hitting the Apache server, which called PHP and WordPress. If we look closer and we look at the response, which is basically the same as right-clicking and choosing View Page Source, if we scroll down to the bottom here, we can see if the response was hit through the Breeze cache, and I'm not seeing that, and that's probably because I am logged in. So let's pull up an incognito window here where I am not logged in, and let's take a look at loading the page again here where I'm not logged in. And you'll see we get all the same stuff, but we see this time it took 98 milliseconds. If we look at the headers, you'll see that we got an X cache miss, so it was fast. And if we take a look at the response, or view the source, if we scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that it was cache served by Breeze cache. So this the Breeze stepped in, and so let's talk about where Breeze is. Breeze is down again at the in the WordPress level, so that's actually a plugin. Here's my WordPress instance, dedicated managers on the server. Again, if we look top down and we look at the server, so here's the server. Dedicated managers is running on the server as a WordPress instance. So this is that WordPress instance. I've got the Breeze plugin here. Looks like I need to update, but if we go to the settings on that, you'll see here's the cache system, and I've got caching enabled. And so this is what is outputting that that code at the bottom there. This stuff here at the bottom, if I right-click, choose View Page Source is the other way to get to it. Scroll to the bottom, you'll see that it was cached and last modified Wednesday, August 14th at 5:56. So if I click refresh here, we'll see if that changes. It doesn't change because it's just serving up that same cached file. If I go to Breeze here on my, again, back on my my portal here, my WordPress portal, and I purge all caches, now I'll pull back up that server, and remember it was Wednesday, August 14th, 2019 at 5:56. And now see there it changed because I cleared the cache. So even though it is re-rendering everything, it's serving up a new cached file. It's saying it's a new cached file, and so every time I hit refresh, Breeze is stepping in and sending the old version of the file and saving some load off of the WordPress rendering engine. So Breeze is stepping in and making this whole process less of a strain on the server. So the next step to do is when we look at this, right, we talked about when I loaded the, let me pull back up the, where I'm not logged in, my incognito window here. So we've got a dedicated managers call here. We've got a dedicated managers call there, another call there, another call, another call. All these calls are independent hits. So one hit to the server is actually, 10 or more hits. So if 1,000 people come to the website, it's actually 10,000 people. So 10,000 hits, which is just too much for the server. Now this CSS file or this style min is not being served up by the X. You're not seeing X cache hit or miss here. It's making it all the way to the server to PHP. It's none of our front-loading stuff here, none of this stuff is getting hit. And I can prove that by pulling up a session here. So this is, I got an SSH session. I'll show where I'm at. You know, I'm in my Cloudways server. This is the instance of that of this guy here. So we can see that this instance, you know, if I just look at for something common, the BHWFT is the you know, that's the how they're keying this application within the server. So we can see that we're in that BHWFT you know, area, and I'm in the logs. And so if I just do a tail -f and do star log, which is going to just show me anything that gets happened to any log, it's going to listen to all the logs in this directory. And so I'll pull this website back up here, and I'll hit refresh, and we'll see that we got some hits here. I messed myself up there. I had to take a pause and figure things out. So let's start over here. I'm going to go back. I'm listening to all the logs, and what I didn't do was disable the cache here. When I hit refresh here, I only got a few hits. I didn't get all these other hits that I was talking about for stuff like this jQuery file and you know, this oxygen file. And it turned out it's because if I close, let me expand this again. I've lost my, if I click on it, yeah, if I close it here and I look at the waterfall or look over here, it's all being pulled from cache. So this, you know, this oxygen CSS file is being pulled from cache. I need to click here to disable the cache, the local cache. That's this cache. That's none of the caches that I'm talking about anywhere else. That's a cache here on my browser. So now if I disable that, it's not going to pull anything from memory here. So we should see when I hit refresh here, now we see a whole bunch of files getting loaded from the server. So we can see that one hit to the server not only did a you know, to the access log, it got the root page, then it got the WP includes style min CSS, then it got the oxygen CSS, then it pulled the public CSS. So that's all those hits from one refresh, one hit to the server caused all those different hits into the logs, which is all those different hits to WordPress. I mean, these are all calls to WordPress, independent calls, which are running PHP. And every time PHP has to run, it's taken up like 10 megabytes of, you know, each instance. It's a CGI process, I believe, on the server. And so it's taken up, you know, 10 megabytes just to load. So if you get 500 hits, you're already up to 5 gigabytes of memory that you need to be able to run all those processes. So we need to get rid of a lot of these hits to the server. And the way to do that is to, here in Cloudways, is to go to your, remember I'm in the server application for this, for the website. If I click on the CDN here, they've got one-click content delivery network, which is going to pull all those files that would be served by your NGINX process or even some of your Apache stuff. It's going to pull it all over to this CDN so that those things don't even hit your server. And the cool thing is the Breeze plugin works with Varnish in tandem. And I'm sorry, the Breeze plugin works in tandem with the CDN. It works with Varnish too, but it also works with the CDN in that it's going to be smart enough to take some of those files, those CSS files, and rewrite their URLs to the CDN. So let's get back to the Cloudways page here. This is where, again, I'm back on the server and in my application, WordPress application for that server. I clicked on the Cloudways CDN, and so it just wants me to put in my website URL there. One thing I do want to show is this is the Breeze plugin on my application, on my WordPress application for dedicated managers. If we look at CDN here, you can see it's not populated yet, but ultimately we're going to put that CDN stuff in here. But even better, WordPress is able to just do that, or I'm sorry, Cloudways is able to do that for us. So I'm just going to grab, so that I don't spell it wrong, I'm going to grab the website name here, and I'm going to paste it in there and click create. So you saw that it was $1 for 25 gigabytes. I mean, it's cheap, so there's no reason not to do it. You know, it's maybe $1 a month if you have a low volume server, if that. So that automatically did it. And now the cool thing is it's got all this information that you need to copy and paste over into this Breeze plugin. But if you don't want to do that, you just click apply here, and with a single click, you can easily integrate with Cloudways CDN with your application. If it knows about your application, which it does, it knows all about WordPress, and the Breeze plugin is there. So if I just click apply, it's going to activate the CDN for my application, which means it's going to go into my application on the back end, and it is going to install, just populate this stuff. So once that's done, so the CDN has been successfully activated, if I refresh this Breeze page here and click on CDN, it filled in this stuff for me. So I didn't have to copy all that stuff over and figure anything out. So let's just recap what just happened, right, on the top level here. So we just took, in our WordPress application, actually, at the server level, we installed the Cloudways CDN and pushed the information of the Cloudways CDN into the Breeze plugin so that it could re-render the HTML to call the Cloudways CDN files. So if we go back to this here and watch as we get hits. Now remember, all these hits, the CSS or the Oxygen CSS, you know, this was hit too. If right next to my cursor, you can see dedicated managers. The style was dedicated managers. So let's try and see what happens. I'm doing this on the fly. But if I hit refresh, so we still got a lot of hits, and we're doing a lot of downloading here. It loaded a big JPEG file. We still got a lot of hits because that was the first time where, you know, it has to render everything. And we'll see if here. So it did render it. We saw a lot of hits to the server, but you can see now the Oxygen CSS is going to some gobbledygook at stackpathdns.com. So this is no longer this Oxygen CSS server and this style min are no longer going to dedicated managers. They're going over to the CDN. So I'm going to hit refresh here again, or clear that, and then I'll hit refresh again, and you'll see we get less hits to the server. So if we look at the output here, you can see we got that initial request, and then we still get a call for an image here, and that's because apparently from what I'm seeing, the Breeze plugin isn't quite smart enough to pull background images out of the HTML. So the reason it downloaded some files is because something like this image here. This image here is loaded. It's not actually loaded as an image. It's actually loaded as a background image, and it appears as though, you know, the Cloudways wasn't smart enough to take that out and redirect it. But it was smart enough to. I said Cloudways. I think I mean Breeze. I meant the Breeze plugin. It is smart enough to get in front of some of these other things though, like this CSS file. And again, this .css file you might think is a static file, but it's actually a, quote, static file that's rendered by PHP, and it's not actually saved anywhere on the file system as a static file, and that's why NGINX doesn't pick that up before it gets passed on. This file doesn't act, this .css file does not actually exist anywhere. It's actually, you know, being converted to a PHP call through a .htaccess file, and that's the way WordPress kind of works on the back end. I might talk about that in another video, but that's getting deep here. But just know that sometimes you'll see a .css, and that question mark helps you realize that it's not a static file. It's actually, but that's not the reason why. It's the reason why it's getting passed is because the file does not actually does not exist. So NGINX can't find that CSS file on the server, and then it passes it along. And ultimately, WordPress renders that quote file live. But the CDN, the Breeze plugin, has picked that up and changed the URL from dedicated managers over to Cloudways, their CDN, and that's why it's getting loaded from the CDN and not your server. So that takes one of those hits off of your server. So I'm still getting a few hits. I'm getting some images. Background images weren't caught by the Breeze plugin, but any other images will get caught. I think this is, let's take a look and see if this is, that's loaded as a background as well. No, that's loaded as an image. The style was background. It's loaded as an image with an image tag, and you can see that it was re-rendered to go to that stack path CDN DNS, which is their CDN. So these things are all not images, but this background image and this other thing is a background image. They still got loaded from my server, so I'd actually have to do some extra work to pull those off of the server and into another place. So that was the first step, was installing that CDN. That got a whole bunch of the load off of the server. It got all those CSS file calls. It will get most of your image files if they are directly embedded. If they're embedded by CSS as background images, apparently Breeze is not catching that. But this is, that's the first step. That offloads a lot of requests from your server and saves hits to Apache, which again, every time PHP runs, you're talking, I don't know if it's 10 or 30, I haven't looked into it, but every time it runs, it needs memory, and each run is as far as I know, I'm not strong with PHP-FPM, but I'm pretty sure that each instance pulls up a new PHP instance as a CGI and causes needs 30 megabytes or some type of memory load, which is not a big deal on a low volume server. But if you get hit with a lot of hits, you're going to need that memory, and that's how you can keep your costs down by not having to have a server with a lot of memory. You just got to offload a lot of those calls over to the CDN here. So that should be pretty much the most of it. We can see again through the network. I'll reload the page here. We'll start from scratch. You can see the waterfall here. It took 189 milliseconds to load the main page. That came from dedicated managers. Now that page is getting a miss on my browser, but if I go into the application and if I clear all the cookies and make sure there's no session storage, I believe if I come back down to the network now, that's my dog barking. All right, so I just got a package and my dogs went nuts, but I kind of lost my place, but I deleted those cookies. So now I'm going to reload the page, and this time, look, it took 43 milliseconds, right there, 43 milliseconds for the source, the main file to load, and that is because we got an Xcache hit. And so, when somebody first comes to your website, they're going to get that Xcache hit. Again, that Xcache hit is the Varnish stepping in front of Apache and not taking up much memory just to serve that as a static file that it saved somewhere and sending it back to the user. So that first request didn't get to Apache. So now, if I've got 1,000 people coming at one time and they've never been to the site before, so they don't have any cookies, they're pulling from this Varnish cache, which is really a small load and actually very quick to, as we saw here in the waterfall, it actually loaded very, very quick, 65 milliseconds. And then from the the StyleMin and the Oxygen both came in really fast at 43 milliseconds. And I should have shown earlier in the video where if I have those turned off, that those are each in like the 300 millisecond area. So this has significantly decreased my load time. My page is loading faster, and my my load on the server is greatly reduced, so I can handle a lot more traffic. All right, I hope that you found that quick raw brain dump helpful. Again, don't forget to subscribe if you like the videos, and check out the description for a link to get $15 off at currently if you do use Cloudways. And thanks a lot. Happy programming, and we'll see you in the next video. This has been Terry Caliendo of Dedicated Managers.